Hi, friends. Happy Friday to you, and welcome to this week's marketing training. We are focusing in on websites, and that has sort of been our hot topic the last few trainings. But this week specifically, we're talking about website design. A lot of the time inside of this group, we talk about website strategy, we talk about the copy, we talk about SEO and things like that. And all of that is kind of just assuming that there's also a strong design element there. There are so many options out there for website design for therapists. There are services like Brighter Vision, there are different platforms. And while there are certainly better ones than others, and if you need recommendations, please do ask, the fact is that all of them can work. But they can only work if you're using them correctly. And so today we're talking about website design mistakes that can cost you clients. Now that's strong language, like to think or to say or to state, right, that your website could actually cause you to lose clients, but it's the truth. And it's actually what studies show us. So that's what we're diving into today. It looks like we have quite a few folks joining us. Thanks for being here. If you can hear me, will you just give me a quick like? I have bad memories of when I've gone through an entire training and you haven't been able to see me or hear me. So hopefully I'm coming through okay. If this is your first time joining me, hi, I'm Anna. I'm thrilled that you're here and part of this community. It's an amazing community, and it's really, really wonderful to have you here. Thank you for those likes. I specialize here inside of Get Booked Out and inside of the work that I do, the programs that I run, and the services that I offer in helping therapists get booked out and fill their caseloads with full fee, ideal fit clients in a way that doesn't feel slimy and in a way that actually works. That's what we do here. It's what everything that I am offering and teaching you about and talking about is hopefully guiding you toward, because that's what I want to see happen for you. So that's me. I'm Anna. Like I said, website design. I would be really curious if you are watching this live, if you would just tell me if you currently have a website where it's built. So that would be WordPress or Squarespace or Wix, or if you use a service like Brighter Vision. If you have a website, what do you use for it? I'm just kind of curious to see what folks say. As I mentioned, any of those can work. And so this training isn't about like, oh, you can only use this number one this platform or something like that. It's like, are we using this platform at, to its fullest? And is it going to be as effective as possible? So we have some Squarespace, we have some WordPress, great. What we're going to be talking about here is 100% applicable to those things. It's applicable to Wix, it's applicable to whether or not you use Brighter Vision, whatever it is. So please know that. Now, let's all just make sure we have a good understanding of why website matters in general. So obviously I want you to feel really proud about putting your website out there and sharing it with people. And certainly if you feel like it looks good, you're a lot, you stand behind it a little bit more. And so there's something to be said about that. But when it comes to your client, we actually have data that backs up why this is so important. And the data shows us a couple of things. It shows us, one, it takes 0.05 seconds. 0.05 seconds for someone to make a judgment about you when your website loads. That's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time to read the great copy that you've written or to click around and see the great headshots that you had taken or, take in and think about your logo. It is something that happens almost instantaneously. And is driven by the design of your website. And so this is about, from the client perspective, increasing your level of professionalism and how someone views you, your credibility. Obviously, the content on your website, which we talk a lot about inside this group, is hopefully going to be very compelling and speak to that ideal client you want to be attracting. But they're not going to stick around and read it if they don't think that you're a professional, credible source to read it from. That's what your website design can ultimately do. Now, the other thing I want to be really, really clear on, and I don't see this talked about enough, is, well, one thing I do see talked about a lot, right? We talk about in this group, you hear it everywhere, is SEO. You need to have, SEO optimized website. You need to have a, get found on Google. Your website design matters more than ever when it comes to ranking on Google. And you may or may not know that, but Google's getting smarter and smarter, and this is actually to your benefit. It's a good thing. Google is recognizing when people stay on your website. Google is recognizing if your website design does a nice job of getting someone down the page or into another page, if it is loading quickly, if they can view it nicely on all screen sizes, if your website functions well and guides someone on the journey that is intended for them, Google takes notice of that and Google views that as a positive thing. And so having a good website design is certainly about you and how you feel about your website. It's definitely about how your client views you, but it's also this other third thing. It's also about being Google friendly. And I want you to get found on Google because that's free marketing, right? We talk a lot about that inside of this group. Your website design actually does play into that more so than ever before. And that's really what led us to this training, is that your website design matters more than it ever has. Because your client is out there, and whether they know it or not, they have a standard, they have an expectation for their experience on a website, and we want to make sure that your website rises to that occasion. So that is why this is so important. Yeah, so we got some more. Okay, Fiverr. Interesting. Okay, so Kelly, you got yours through Fiverr on WordPress. Okay, Angela, Squarespace, but not published yet. How exciting. You're in that build time. So let's get into these 6 website design mistakes. Now, I've looked at hundreds in the past almost 3 years doing this work. I've looked at hundreds of therapist websites. Actually, every single person that joins this group, I look at their website. So there are 4,600 clinicians in this group. I've looked at least that many websites. I've looked at a lot of therapy websites. I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't. And so we're going to be talking through some key design mistakes, so specific to design, that I see happen and exactly what you can do to change them. The very first thing, and you might not think about this as a design thing, but it definitely does fall under this. The very first mistake I'm going to share with you is websites that are difficult to navigate. If I can't, as your potential client, get to the information that I need, I will leave your website. And your design has a lot to do with that. Think about that section, that menu or navigation at the top of your website. If that isn't crystal clear, if that isn't just so easy to understand that I know exactly where to go to get what I need, then we have this risk of confusion. If your website is, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in some of the other mistakes down this list, but if your website's really hard to get through and click around, or it doesn't load quickly or anything like that, if the experience I have on your website isn't positive, I'm going to leave. And Google is also going to see that. Google's little bots, they're seeing that and they're noticing that. So if your website is difficult to navigate, then we're in trouble, because it's like that foundation, sort of the infrastructure or the scaffolding of your website. If that isn't strong, then everything that we build on top of that is going to be a little bit wobbly. So a few things that I see clinicians really benefit from when it comes to this is making sure that menu, like I said, is crystal clear and extremely obvious. This is not the place to use kitschy, cute language. It's a place to have about. It's a place to have specialties. It's a place to have FAQs. It's a place to have contact. Be super straightforward and reinforce that. Try to avoid any sort of language, any page titles, anything as in your website design or your website sort of structure that isn't crystal clear and easy to understand. There are places to be creative in your marketing, and there's places to be creative on your website, but the basic framework and how things work should be repeatable. It should be easy to understand, and it should be really, really simple to get through. So difficulty navigating, sometimes I'll have a client schedule, some time with me. I'll have a practice power hour coaching session, and they'll ask me to take a look at their website, and I load it up, and there's so many items in that menu, or I'm scrolling through just trying to figure out how to get to their about page, and that's not clear. So a really great thing to do here is to ask someone that maybe hasn't been to your website before or hasn't been there in a long time to do it, and just to offer you some suggestions as far as, was this easy to use? Was there anything that you ran into that was difficult? Because that is something that you can improve on pretty quickly. It's as simple as maybe doing a little bit of reorganization, renaming, and making sure that buttons and things like that are super, super clear. So that's a little bit of kind of a, not necessarily fonts or colors or design, quote unquote, but that still falls under your website design and how things are built. So that's the first thing that I see kind of trip people up, because if people can't get to what they need, then they're going to leave in search of what they need. So we want to make sure that they can find what they're looking for. The next website design mistake, and I've referenced this a little bit in relation to Google, is it's not responsive. And Wix is a culprit on this one. I see Wix therapy sites, sites built on Wix particularly struggle with this. Over 50% more than likely of your potential clients are viewing your website from their phone or from a smaller device. If your website doesn't look good, doesn't function well, doesn't load quickly on those smaller screens, you're in trouble, right? Because that's half of your potential clients not getting the information that they need. So I mentioned Wix. It's not to say that Wix is the only kind of culprit here, but a lot of other platforms, Squarespace, which is my favorite, is automatically responsive. All of those design elements are automatically responsive, but the best thing you can do here, please, right now or after this video, pull up your website at the fullest possible width you can find, and then bring it all the way in and make sure that there's no overlap, that you can view all of the menu items, that the text is still legible, and make sure that the experience, again, that someone's having on a smaller screen is just as good as someone viewing it on a desktop, because chances are they're actually on their phone. Google was very, very clear about this in recent years, that if your website doesn't function well on mobile, you will not rank well. It impacts your ability to show up on Google if your website isn't functioning well on mobile. One thing that I'll say about that is load speed is also another important thing. So using images that don't take too long to load. All of our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and so the faster your website can load, again, the better off you'll be. And so that's another thing to keep in mind. If your website doesn't look good at every single width possible, and on every single type of device, then you're in trouble there. Like I mentioned, services like Squarespace, most WordPress templates and things like that are automatically responsive. So if you're on one of those, hopefully this isn't something that you need to worry about, but it's still worth pulling that website up and just doing a quick audit to make sure that it's visible and easy to use at all widths. Okay, now let's get into some of the more kind of designy things, right? So if you've been inside and you've DIY'd your website, you've played around with, picking fonts and colors and layouts and things like that. Okay, one of the biggest design mistakes I see clients make is they have too many colors, too many fonts. And, we talked about how, your website design is important to people because it's what builds credibility. If you're all over the place visually, then you feel all over the place, right? So if you're using too many fonts, which as far as my design standards, that would be more than 3 fonts. Or if you're using too many colors, which is more than 3 to 4 kind of core colors in your website, then you're probably you're risking coming off a little bit less professional than you could be. And so in an effort to be really like creative and cool and visual, you're actually kind of diminishing your credibility from a visual perspective. So again, this is a little bit kind of, this happens subconsciously. No one is looking at your website necessarily and thinking, oh, this person isn't professional. They might be thinking that explicitly, but it's just giving off kind of this vibe, right? That when you land on a therapy website or on any website that has a really strong, consistent brand. It feels cohesive. It feels strong. It feels trustworthy. That's what I want you to be giving off with your website. So again, 3 or fewer fonts. If you only use 1 font on your entire website, that's okay. I would prefer you to use fewer than more, but no more than 3 fonts and no more than 3 to 4 core colors. Again, even fewer if you want. If you have seen the Squarespace templates that I launched this week, each of them has a very specific set of colors and of fonts to make sure that professionalism is very, very cohesive, regardless of what page you're on or what you're reading or what the purpose of that page is. It looks consistent and it feels consistent and it feels trustworthy and credible. So that's the third mistake that I see a lot of clinicians make is too many fonts or too many colors. The next one, so that was the third one. The next design mistake that I see a lot of clients, a lot of clinicians specifically make is there's not enough breathing room. We call that white space in design. So there's not enough room between words or between sections. I hear one of the biggest kind of pushbacks I get when I'm coaching clients around their websites is, well, I don't want my website to be boring. I don't want to write that much. I don't want to bore people or it to be too long. Please hear me, and this is from someone who's been doing this for multiple years. I'm a professional copywriter. People will read long copy. They will scroll long web pages. They just won't read boring copy. They just won't scroll boring web pages. One of the easiest ways to lose your client, especially if you have even if you have really good copy, is if it's all just in this like these massive blocks of text and it feels like a dissertation. You know, you're reading on like the phone and you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. There's not enough space for the eye to rest. There is so much to be said for adding that white space in. And when I land on a website that doesn't have that professional feel, when I step back and look at what it is, more often than not, it's that there's not enough room. There's not enough breathing room in the design. There needs to be a place for that eye to rest. And I'm telling you, again, this is one of those subconscious things, but it lends you so much credibility and so much professionalism when you're just giving everything a chance to breathe. So your website might be really long. A web page might be really long because you've written a bunch of great content. Still give it all the space it needs. Make use of some larger headlines, so, you know, and smaller paragraphs to break things up. It should be very visually interesting, and I should be able to scroll that page, be it from my phone or on my desktop, and be able to understand what this page is about as I make my way down. Right? So this should not come off like a paper that you wrote in grad school. This should come off as something that's really easy to consume and easy to scan, because no one's going to read every single page of your website. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to offer enough information in a consumable way that people are going to get to the information that they need the most. So not enough white space. So please, right now, pull up your website and ask for every single section that I'm, of what I'm talking about or addressing on my website. Is there enough breathing room visually? Are things too cramped? Do I have really long paragraphs? Consider breaking those up. Again, adding in some headlines and things like that. That's a great way to lend your website some professionalism and to make that experience better on your website. So not enough white space is one of those big ones I see happen. All right, the next one. This is always an interesting one. One of the biggest, I saved this for last because it really is, it's pretty big. Poor use of images. Now these are all, you can use images in a lot of ways in your website design. So there's kind of two camps that we're gonna talk about here. One, pictures of yourself. You do not need, you certainly can and can benefit from, but you do not need to go out and pay a brand photographer thousands of dollars to take professional pictures of you. If you're on my email list, you actually got some tips on how to ask anyone in your life that has a nice iPhone how to take pictures of you. But it is so worth acknowledging how important that first impression you make on someone is from your website. You know, when I teach clients how to write and create their websites, we have a smiling headshot. We have some sort of introduction on your homepage, and then definitely something on your about page. If these aren't professional looking images, how can we expect them to think that you're, that you're professional, right? And it's not to say that you're not, but we are doing you a disservice if the images of you don't convey the same level of professionalism that you actually bring into the therapy room. Like I said, that doesn't mean you have to get a really expensive photo shoot, but what it does mean is you need to put a little bit of thought into the pictures of you on your website. That can be as simple as asking someone with a nice iPhone to flip into portrait mode and take a couple good pictures of you. You do not need an entire album of images to choose from, but I want you to be well represented on your website. So please actually, do put some thought into that and make sure that the image that's on your website is conveying to your ideal client what they can expect and who they can expect in choosing to reach out to you. They say a picture, is worth 1,000 words, and when it comes to someone who is looking for a one-to-one connection with a therapist, the picture of that therapist speaks even more than 1,000 words. So I want you to be well represented. If you pull up your website right now and there either isn't a picture of you, which is a huge mistake, or it's an outdated picture of you or a picture of you that doesn't really convey you, then that's something worth revisiting. And that's something that can really, really help form that connection. I've actually sat down with many clinicians in coaching style settings, and I'm like, okay, great. Why do you think your therapy clients choose you? And they say, well, they tell me I have kind eyes. I've heard that a lot. You may have been told that, by someone. If that's true, are those kind eyes available on your website? Are we communicating that and showing that? Don't discount how important that introduction you're making visually is on your website. So that's the first type of image to think about. So poor choice of images when it comes to the images of yourself, or no pictures of yourself. There has to be at least one or two minimum pictures of you on your website. The other one is other images. So images that you put on the tops of your pages or inside of your content, things like that. I actually I remember a clinician that I worked with, she told me about her friend that has this website, and it's brown and has pictures of deer because he likes to hunt. He wasn't trying to attract other people that like to hunt, but it was all about him and these pictures of deer, because that felt relevant to him. Right? We have to think about what's relevant to my client here. So the images you use on your website should not ever take away from the content itself. It should only be adding context. So that's the first thing to keep in mind is don't pick images just because you like them. Ask if this is relevant and helpful to my client. If the answer is no, then maybe you don't need that image at all. That's one thing that I hear a lot from clients, like, well, I don't know where to pick images. Maybe you don't need an image. There are times and places in design to use images, but you don't have to have them. So if it's going to take away or if it doesn't actually help your client, then there's one piece of criteria. The other thing that I see happen a lot, and you I'm sure have seen websites that do this, are websites with really negative imagery. So you go to an anxiety specialty page and it's a picture of a woman with her head in her hands. We're basically reminding your ideal client, remember how miserable you feel right now? Remember how stressed out you are? That is not what we want this imagery to do. Design is so subconscious. We are creating this sense and this feeling subconsciously. One of the biggest ways and kind of the best ways that we can take advantage of that is by using our images to cast vision. We want your ideal client to see themselves in the images on your website, if you choose to use them, as they can accomplish as part of therapy. So the images you use on your website should be almost exclusively positive. If this is an anxiety page and you choose to use an image, this should be an image of someone enjoying life. This should be someone post-anxiety counseling. We don't need to use your images to remind someone of why they're there. That's not the point of these images. We want them to see themselves experiencing the results and the transformation that can happen as part of therapy in your website. So that's something to really just pass a filter to pass all of this through. Is this helping my client see themselves and ultimately understand what they can experience as a result of working with me? So that's a huge design mistake that I see, is poor choice of images, whether that's of you or just images that you use in the design. Never use an image just for the sake of it. If it doesn't have a place or a purpose, if it isn't contributing to the design, then you probably don't need it. And so I want to encourage you in that. That might mean that you go into your website right now and you take a couple images out so that we can stay focused on, what's ultimately helping your client decide that you're the right therapist for them. That's the fifth one. The sixth design mistake that I will share with you, and please, if you're watching this and you have questions as we've been going through these, don't hesitate to put them into the comments. But the sixth one that I will share with you is there's no clear call to action. Now, this kind of straddles the line of design and of copy and strategy, like we often talk about in this group, but there needs to be a very clear visual place for me to take action from your website. Very often that is a button that says something like book first appointment or schedule free consultation. Maybe one of the 4 colors on your website, maybe one of those is reserved only for buttons. We want your buttons to pop off the page because we want it to be immediately clear to someone what they need to do next in order to reach out to you. So a clear call to action should be represented on every single page of your website. There should be one on your about page. Please have a schedule free consultation button on your about page. And these should be very visual elements in your design. So maybe that's a square, maybe it's a outline. It doesn't matter how you design it specifically, but there has to be something very, very clear, a place for me to take action. Now, why? If someone has decided, if you've done a great job on your website and someone has decided that you're the therapist that they want to work with, we don't want to lose out on any of that momentum. We want it to be immediately clear what needs to happen. We need to reinforce that idea with these buttons throughout your website. So please make sure that there's a super clear call to action. Please don't expect or assume that your ideal client knows they need to visit the contact page to reach out to you. Show them what to do. Make it clear, make it obvious, make it visual, and invite them into that next step. Again, this is an expectation that your ideal client has as someone who uses the internet. If you go right now to a website that sells toothpaste, or if you go to a website for a photographer or something like that, I bet you that the effective ones have clear calls to action. Buy now, book now, whatever that is. What's your call to action? And are you being clear about it? So many times I'll load up a therapy website and it's like they're like they feel bad that they're like asking someone to take the next step. This is an invitation. This is, hey, if you're ready, here's the button. And that needs to be really, really clear from a visual perspective inside of your design. So like I said, maybe your buttons are all a certain color that you don't use anywhere else in your design so that they really pop off the page. But do something to make sure that it's not blending in and it really is jumping off the page and saying, hey, when you're ready, I'm right here. When you're ready, let's take the next step, inviting them into what's next in their website. So friends, those are the 6 website design mistakes that I see happen a lot. Now, there are other design mistakes out there, but those were the 6 that as I was really revisiting, and I revisited some example sites that I have sort of in my list, what I see be the number 1 mistakes and ultimately the things that can really up-level your website, right? So I don't want to give you like this big laundry list of things to do and then not see results. These are the types of things that if you update these things, your website is going to take on a level of professionalism that right now it doesn't have. And that's what I want for you. So let me run through those again, especially if you weren't able to join us right here at the beginning. So the 6 design mistakes that can cost you clients. And I feel really strong saying that because it's what the data shows us. Number 1, difficult to navigate. Number 2, not responsive at all screen sizes. Number 3, too many fonts or colors, too busy. Number 4, not enough white space, not enough place for my eyes to rest and be able to scan and get to the information that I need. Poor choice of images, whether that be pictures of yourself or kind of design images throughout your website, and then no clear call to action. Those are the main mistakes that I want to see you avoid. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but if you are struggling with this, if you feel really overwhelmed by website design and building a website and platforms and tech and white space and all those kinds of things, please know that there's support. I just this week officially publicly launched, although I've had some folks already purchase and launch my templates. I went ahead and launched my Squarespace website templates this week. If you haven't seen them, they're bookmarked here at the top of the group. You can also get their walkerstrategyco.com/template-shop. But my templates are built on Squarespace, which is my number 1 recommendation for therapists. They are Google friendly. And the cool thing is that they look great, if I do say so myself, but they're fully customizable. You can change everything from the fonts to the colors to the pictures to the layouts, totally within your control. And they're built on the frameworks of the websites that I have seen be effective. So there is a certain framework that over the last 3 years, I've built and refined and now teach folks how to do themselves. These websites are built on that. So if you have taken one of my courses like the Fill Your Practice Formula or Confident Copy, or even watched some of my videos inside of here, these templates are built using those frameworks. So they do more than look good, right? They are built to be effective. And if you've gone through one of those programs, they're really, really easy to take the copy that you wrote inside of Fill Your Practice Formula and drop them into these designs. It's meant to be simple. So anyway, that is something that exists if you need this support. But like I said, you can be effective on any of these platforms that we've talked about as long as you're making use of this real estate from a visual perspective, from a content perspective, and you're really thinking about what your ideal client needs in order to realize that you are an amazing therapist and you're someone who can help them. So I didn't see any questions come through. Thank you for letting me know kind of where some of you guys are built. I was told Squarespace is not good for SEO, can't do backlinks, etc. Kelly, Squarespace is actually extremely robust from an SEO perspective. The only platform that sort of outperforms it SEO-wise is WordPress. WordPress is extremely, extremely robust when it comes to SEO. But I have built and designed many websites on Squarespace for clients, and they're ranking very well in pages 1 and 2 of Google. Backlinks and things like that absolutely function still on Squarespace, and you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to optimizing the website design and the website copy in order to be Google friendly. So definitely do know that. Squarespace can be really, really strong from a Google perspective, and I've seen that happen in the practices of my own clients. So good question. Thank you for asking that. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. If you're watching this, you're catching the replay or something like that and you have questions, just drop a hashtag replay and your question, and I would be happy to jump back in here and address anything that you're thinking about. But I appreciate all of you. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I'm just really grateful to be part of this community. So thanks for being here. I'll talk to you next time.